as a data privacy kind of principle, like we've got data governance, we have privacy teams, like we work on a lot of this stuff in real detail. But the kind of foundational principle is don't be creepy.
Welcome to the Human Tell podcast, where our category-leading insights professionals share a little bit about what we are learning here at Human Tell, alongside cultural experts who provide additional perspective so that we can all better understand why people do what they do. I'm Lolita, Vice President of Brand Partnerships at Genius and host of the Human Tell podcast. Our discussion today centers around data privacy, specifically how consumers feel about it in an advertising context. We'll discuss how data privacy concerns stack up alongside everything else we have to worry about, how people feel about a variety of related issues, and who they trust and feel is responsible for protecting their personal information across the advertising ecosystem. The data that we'll reference today comes from our advertising group's November 2025 survey of 4,000 Americans on these issues. I'm joined today by Jennifer Ng, General Manager of Advertising Insights at The Trade Desk. Have you heard of The Trade Desk? Of course you have. It's an ad tech platform that helps brands deliver and track ads across the internet and streaming TV. Jen is a member of the Human Tell Cooperative and played a key role in developing this consumer research for us. Jen's expertise in this area is deep, having led Kantar's Safe Count, a groundbreaking initiative to provide consumers with data transparency and market research. She also literally built and led the client measurement team at Meta throughout a period of rapid growth and data sensitivity challenges. That sounds like a very busy job, Jen. Welcome to the Human Tell podcast.
Thank you so much.
All right, now Jen and I are joined by Jonathan Roberts, who we will be referring to as JR. JR is the Chief Innovation Officer for People, and I know you have heard of People. People is the largest publisher of content in the United States, reaching 300 million Americans each month throughout their titles like Health, Parents, All Recipes, Travel and Leisure, and of course, People. They are at the forefront of developing new models for targeted advertising that are both more effective and more respectful of consumer privacy. JR is leading that charge for the organization and the industry. Welcome to the Human Tell podcast, JR.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Happy to be here and happy to have you both. So we have a lot to unpack here, so I hope you have your bags. But let's sort of dig into the scope of the issue. I want to start by talking about the level of concern that people have about data privacy. In 2026, we all have a lot, and I mean a lot, to worry about, right? From the rising price of groceries to cultural division to anything and everything in between. Now, in fact, the data we gathered in November shows that people are almost as concerned about data privacy and security as they are about economic issues. I'll throw out a few numbers for you. 63% of the people in the US aged 16 to 74 are very concerned about the rising grocery prices. That's fair. I mean, that's people's number one concern today. But almost as many, 57% of people, are also very concerned about the collection of their personal data without their permission. And then 56% told us that they are also very concerned about their personal data being exposed in a data breach. That places this among the top 10 concerns of nearly 60 things that we've asked about. Furthermore, about 2 out of every 3 Americans we surveyed feel that privacy is a basic right that everyone deserves to have protected, and that people should have a right to choose how their data is used for advertising. Now, clearly, this is a meaningful issue. So, with that context, Jen, I'll start with you. What has your experience been over the past 2 decades? And what has it taught you about how this issue is really evolving in the consumer's minds?
Yeah, this is a great topic for me to chat about. I led a company within the Kantar family of research companies. It was called SafeCount. And that was at a time where we were on the leading edge of educating consumers about privacy as it related to things like cookies, ad tracking online, tracking for market research and surveys. It was even in the name of the company, Safe Count. But we were ahead of the time. It was like 10 to 15 years ago. And it was really just the start of that education journey. But what I've really learned over the years is that educating consumers on this topic of privacy is hard. The digital world is a very fast changing environment. Once consumers have even a small grasp on the topic, like cookies, for example, technology changes again and it impacts perceptions. So, for example, when smartphones became prevalent, education around mobile ad trafficking became necessary. And then when social media came around, and I was at Facebook for about a decade ago, education on privacy settings in social media became a thing. So, bottom line, consumers have always had to play catch up on what they should be concerned about and what companies were doing in this space. Um, so yeah, a lot to unpack there.
Do you think today's concern is driven more by real harm that's been done or just really, I guess, a lack of visibility into what's happening behind the scenes?
I'll talk a bit about it later, but I think that it does have a lot to do with some harm. I mean,
Yeah.
remember some of the things that Facebook went through. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that has a lot to do with consumers' perceptions.
Yeah. You know, JR, you work with some of the most established brands in media today. Tell us how your organization's thinking about data privacy has evolved.
So I think a lot of the original challenge here, and I think where particularly a lot of consumers have got a bit like freaked out by this, right? I think a lot of people are
Mhm.
very concerned, is that a lot of this kind of technology to track you, to understand what you've done, and then use that to predict what's coming is creepy, right? Just on the
Yeah,
surface, like it's creepy.
it is. Yes.
Um, and as we get into the weeds, we'll get into, I'm sure, a lot of technical detail, but at our company, we started off with a very simple position of, okay, if you're going to do something new and you're going to release this new technology or work with a new feature, is it creepy? Don't be creepy, right? And like as a data privacy kind of principle, like we've got data governance, we have privacy teams, like we work on a lot of this stuff in real detail. But the kind of foundational principle is don't be creepy. And I think the starting point, and Facebook was a pioneer of this, was if we know everything about all the things you've done online, we can predict what you're going to want to do next better than you do yourself. We know you better than you know yourself. And it wasn't true then, and it's not true now. But it was such a compelling story, we actually kind of lost sight of the fact that it's not actually that good,
Okay.
right? And I think when we get into it, and we'll talk about the details of it, a lot of the questions around cookies, which are obviously a fundamental piece of a lot of how this has been done, people talked a lot about cookie targeting, right? Which is a way of understanding who you are and what you've done and where you've been. But there really isn't any such thing. There's only cookie retargeting because they're always backwards looking. They're always what you did last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. It never speaks to what you're doing right now or trying to do
Mhm.
right now. So we've built an entire infrastructure as an industry around predicting what you're going to do of what you have done historically. But we totally forgot to look for signals of what the consumer is literally trying to do right now. So when
Mhm.
somebody's trying to do something and you show them something else, that's not actually in their best interest and it's creepy. If
Right.
you work with them in the moment with the real time signals that they're giving you, then that's not creepy. That's actually helping them do the thing they're trying to do. So we have spent a lot of time building technology. We built a tool called Decipher, which privileges real-time signals of what you're trying to do right now and who you are in the moment over the kind of guesswork done off the back of signals that have been hoovered up over the last day, week, month. And by doing that, we're much more transparent in the trade with the consumer about what they're trying to do and how we can help them do it.
I think we should put that on a t-shirt. Don't be creepy. I like that. But when I think about it, JR, how do a lot of legacy publishers like People, the thought that comes to mind is, how do you balance like decades long audience trust, right, with some of these modern data expectations? I mean, is it hard to do, hard to balance that?
Yeah, so I run our innovation team here, which is research, which is also targeting and measurement and consumer insights. But I've also run different bits of the business over time. So I ran our health business during the pandemic, for example, or finance business in the early financial crash. And that comes with a very high bar for consumer trust.
Yeah.
Right? When you run health.com, your consumers have to trust you, right? And if somebody wants to know exactly what condition somebody has reading your page, well, that's not actually in partnership with that consumer trust, right? But if you're on, say you're on Parents Magazine, right, been around forever, and you're trying to figure out why your kid has a 103-degree fever and what to do about it, if I go with the kind of targeting philosophy of a lot of ad tech, I'd look at all the things you've read over the last 2 weeks, and I'd give you a full-page takeover which shows you the pair of shoes that's still sitting in your Zappos cart, right?
Mm-hmm.
When what you want to do is figure out what to do about the fact that your kid's got a fever, right? That may be accurate to who you are long-term, but it is fundamentally wrong and broken for what you're trying to achieve right now. Instead, if we just privilege the fact that you've got a sick kid, we can show you incredibly useful advertising. We're never the last step in what you do. We help people make choices. We help people do things. We help people figure challenges out in their life across home, food, tech, health, beauty, entertainment, travel. But we're never the last step. So if we can understand who you are right now in that moment, if you're the parent of a sick kid, then we can help you understand the benefits of the various medicines you might need at this point, right? And help you down that path. We also know right now that you're a parent. We don't have to guess. You're telling us right now that you're not only that you are a parent, but you're being a parent in the moment. Now, we could retarget you when you're on liquor.com on a Friday evening making a Manhattan. You're still a parent. You're definitely not being a parent right now. You don't want diaper ads, right?
Hopefully not, yes.
So that's the difference between being right and it being a good idea. Right? And I think the industry kind of forgot that even though you might be finding the right person, you're almost never getting them at the right time because the signal you're reading is last week's signal, not the signal in the moment.
Yeah. That's actually a perfect segue into sort of the benefits and the concerns, or the perceived benefits. And one thing that really jumped out to me when I was looking at the data is that people seem much less concerned about data tracking when it's done in an advertising context. However, only 25% strongly agree that sharing data can really benefit them as consumers. So when you get more specific in terms of asking about particular benefits, you get a higher agreement. So our data show 4 in 10 think that targeted discounts and reducing ads can actually be a benefit to sharing data, for instance, but it's still not overwhelming. But on the other hand, we saw that 56% of people are very concerned about cybersecurity risks. 55% are concerned about how their information is being sold without receiving any benefit. And 42% are just very confused by the ecosystem, right? So the concern in an advertising context is lower, but there does seem to be plenty of room to help people feel more comfortable about the mechanics and the benefits of targeted advertising. So I'm going to volley the ball back over to you, Jen. And one, I want to give you an opportunity to address some of the points JR made and see if you have any additional takeaways from the data.
Yeah, well, let me start with what I was alluding to earlier. I think the concerns over things like cybersecurity risks, your information being sold, um, and that's over half of the consumers, like you just said, Lolita. But that's I think a likely hangover from the scandalous times, like at Facebook. Like
Right.
if you remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal. I happened to still be at Facebook. That was in 2018. I think that scared a lot of people about what was happening to their data and what could happen to their data. So I think that's when it's sort of around the time when I think increased education and advocacy for privacy really started to rise.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2021, Apple introduced the idea of ATT, the app tracking transparency. And in 2020, Google announced their plans to phase out third-party cookies and Chrome. And then more of the introduction of the idea of benefits of personalized advertising came in really strong. And tying to what JR said, I think there's the right kind of personalized advertising, and then there's personalized advertising, but like in the wrong situations. And while these numbers are definitely still low, as you mentioned, like only 4 in 10 see some of these benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, going to some specifics, like 41% agree that the significant benefits for tailored discounts and promotions, they could see that. 1 in 3 see benefits connecting to products and services that would, fit them in a particular moment, fit their overall lifestyle, that would fit their need wherever they might be located. So they see it. Like, those numbers are still low. There's a lot of work to do. But I think general education on this sort of personalization benefits seems like a good starting approach for building trust with consumers.
Do you think the personalization is broken or just sort of poorly communicated?
Well, I mean, I think maybe not necessarily the communication, but like I think the examples that JR gave are great, right? Like you don't want diaper ads while you're looking for drinks, or
Right.
it has to be in the right situation. There's personalization that's useful, and then there's personalization just at any moment because the technology can do it. And so I think that makes a huge difference in how consumers perceive things.
Yeah. Do you think anything's missing in how the industry explains the benefits of, I guess, advertising-driven data use? Like, is there an opportunity to better explain it to the average consumer?
I kind of think we've done what we can. I think the proof is in in the pudding, if you will, right? Like, people just want to, even in this research, I think people think it's privacy is a basic right? Like, there should just be a fundamental understanding that companies are doing the right thing, and it doesn't require a lot of like over education on these topics.
Right. Okay. JR, what about you? What are you learning about how to build trust with and provide benefits to consumers in this advertising environment?
I think a lot of the lack of trust comes from, honestly, a level of kind of bad behavior and not very well executed ad targeting historically, right? Everybody here has been chased around the internet by something they left in a cart and didn't buy. Right? Everyone here has been chased around the internet by something they put in the cart and did buy. Like, I already have it. Why am I being advertised, right? Like, these are not hard triggers to put into the tech, but the work hasn't been done to do that right. Like, I heard a story where somebody used their partner's computer before Christmas and like went around all the stores that they went to and looked specifically at all the products they wanted so that their partner would be tracked around the internet by all the things they wanted for Christmas. Like, that's how they influenced them to buy them Christmas presents.
I'm going to make a note of that. That is great.
When that's kind of like when it's so broken that people are using it by default to like game their Christmas present list, that's not going well, right? That's not good technology being used well. And a lot of the work that's being done here is like to the benefit of the advertising company, not to the benefit of the consumer. Take a different example. We all have geolocation on our phones, right? Our phones know where we are to within like a couple of meters. That is incredibly privacy violating, just like on its front, like that a device knows exactly where you are.
Right.
None of the conversations around privacy over the last decade have been, should we turn that off? Because it's useful, right? It allows us to get the best route from A to B. It allows us to see whether our favorite coffee shop has a long line or a short line, right? It's incredibly valuable, and it has not been abused for creepy uses. Like I don't get pinged with ads for the shop I'm walking about taking over my phone. If it did, I would want it gone, right? So the question is, where's the value being provided? Is it really value to the consumer? Or is it really value to an advertiser for an acceptable cost to the consumer? A lot of the ad tech has been about the second. And consumers are smart, right? They know when they're being the product, not the user. And for lots of the ad tech technology, they've been the product, not the user. So in our case, as I mentioned, we're never the last step in what the consumer does. And when we take seriously the page you're on, the work you're doing, how you're trying to do things, we see engagement with our ads that shocks our partners, right? Because many people, even in the ads industry, don't believe people click ads.
Right.
And I'll say, oh, well, actually, people don't click bad ads, right? If you're reading a page on Better Homes and Gardens about when to plant your spring perennials, right? Strange to say this when we've got a massive winter storm coming through New York this weekend, but like it'll be soon, right? You should do it soon. If we show people ads for flowers, great, people buy bulbs. If we show them ads for luxury garden furniture, like who is this person? They're a garden owner, they want a nice garden for spring. That's not contextual targeting. There's no patio furniture mentioned in that article, but I know that right now you are thinking about having a lovely garden. If we show them those ads, people click them, they buy them, and it's true of all of these sets because it's supportive of what you're trying to do, not attempting to take the thing you're doing and switch it. So much of advertising is interruptive, not supportive. Like we avoid the interruptive and say, like, let's just take seriously what your intent is right now and help you do the thing you're trying to do. And we see click-through rates that are like 3, 4, 5 times higher than the industry average.
Wow. And I wonder, as a consumer myself, are there signals, are there moments where I feel that targeting is helpful and I'm aware of it in that moment, or when I know it's being invasive and I'm like, okay, this is sort of creepy? So I throw this out to both of you and love to get your feedback. So why do you think consumers, talking to myself as well, why do you think we understand that data fuels like free content? Like we get it in a way, but emotionally, it's still hard. That trade-off, like I still resist it, like the trade-off. It's like I want it for the great things, but then there's a point to your quote, JR, like it gets creepy, and I'm like, so how do you sort of balance that? And as a consumer, to help us understand that you almost have to give up certain things to gain certain things.
I think it also has a lot to do with those bad actors, right? I think you've got people on one side of their brain like all these bad things can happen or they have happened, and then on the other side of the brain, but I do get some benefits out of it. One of the obvious things I think about the benefits is sometimes some of the shopping behavior, like JR gave some great examples. I think we probably all have the example of like I'm on Instagram, I see an ad for something interesting or that I want, or I'd be thinking about buying. Some great examples show up, and we've probably made a purchase there. Like I think we kind of understand those trade-offs in the shopping arena. What surprised me from some of the data is that people up there with like sharing shopping preferences. People were willing to share health and fitness data. That
Hmm.
first surprised me a bit. Like health is something very personal and very private. But I think there are, the benefit. I just bought an Aura ring as an example, right? I'm sharing a ton of my data, my health data through that, but I definitely am getting a benefit from it.
Hmm.
So I think, you know, while there's that scary stuff on one side, I think people can feel and experience the benefits of things that they're getting in return.
Yeah, I was thinking one of my coworkers, JR, they actually mentioned that they said, "I hate that I'm getting targeted now for." Uh, I can't think of the product, but it's for thinning hair. And he said,
Mm.
I just Googled it once, right? So his hair just started to thin. He said, I just Googled it once. And now it's embarrassing me. It's my phone, but it's embarrassing me because it keeps popping up. So sometimes that's conversely something that can happen. Like you bring the party to you, right?
Oh, for sure. And I
Yeah.
think there's a kind of a really interesting problem in the actual fundamental design of this, right at the heart of it, which is a lot of advertising is based on saying what you're looking for and doing online tells us about you,
Hmm.
right? And a very large proportion of people, when they're looking for things online, are actually looking for their kids, their parents, their partner, cousin, and niece. Like, you're actually not always looking at things for you. Like, if you're caring for an older parent, for example, suddenly your entire internet can get taken over with products that are only relevant for people who are uh, that person. Like, but you're not that
Right.
person. You're caring for and supporting them. Same
Hmm.
for kids, right? But this kind of identity-based ad targeting was built on the assumption that when I do something, it tells the world about me, not about somebody else.
Right.
We're not individuals when we're online, and we're different people every time we come online, which is the exact
Mm.
opposite of what identity-based targeting is founded on. Again, so if you say, when I am online caring for somebody else, I want products recommendations as that are relevant to their needs, not mine. The next time I'm online, I don't need that. I want the stuff for the next person I'm caring about, which may be me, right? It may be
Right.
me looking at something for myself. Um, but that like very, very simple insight is exactly opposite to how ad targeting on the internet has been done for 20 years, which is why we threw it out for a lot of our campaigns and just work directly with the real-time need, which meets people where they are in the moment for who they are caring for in the moment. And it works much better.
I like that quote. We are different people each time we're online. Jen, you spoke about the actors, right? So when we talk about personal agency and the trade-offs, and when it comes to data security, to your point, there are a lot of actors in play, right? We have the advertisers, the media companies that deliver the ads, the payment platforms, credit cards, et cetera. And then there are the groups that people don't even know about, like the trade desk. Of course, they know about the trade desk, Jen, right? But we asked people, right, uh, who they felt were responsible for ensuring comfortable and secure data relationships. And interestingly, over half of the people surveyed said that they themselves bear a great deal of responsibility in protecting their own info. And that's the highest number among the ecosystem. Overall, we also learned that consumers are more likely to manage their digital footprint in ways that really help maximize personal control, right? 47% filter what they share on social. I'm one of them. 43% manage mobile features like location access. And then 37% actually delete cookies. And 35% use the ad blockers to protect themselves. So the question is, what have you both learned about how much consumers actually want to play a role in protecting themselves and the ways in which advertisers can make that relationship just seem more equitable?
Yeah. I mean, I think education played a a key role in that. Like that was
Mhm.
sort of the first step, and a lot of, there was a lot of simplification of complex technical topics in this space. Um, back in the day, I think there was a lot of education around, oh, you can delete your cookies, right? So I think deleting cookies and ad blockers, those are kind of now simple concepts to understand.
Mhm.
It makes sense that that's what consumers they're used to. They're already doing those things, right? Similarly, like in the early days, Facebook did a lot of education around, oh, okay, like no, actually you can change your settings, you set things up in a way. So, people are also kind of familiar with that, like, all right, I can change my settings for what I
Yeah.
share. But as much as I think about advertisers continuing to do education on this, it's really about, and I kind of mentioned this earlier too, like it's really about showing consumers what they can get that makes the relationship seem more equitable, right?
Mm.
I mentioned the Instagram example, but proof is in the pudding, right? I think
Yep.
um, that relationship and that trust is built around getting the things and that they feel are more valuable to them. So, you've got in part, like the first part is the education, but it really is also about actually, showing them that we're doing the right things. And, as you mentioned, like I don't think consumers really know what the trade desk is and what they do. We're not really
Yeah.
too much of a consumer facing company, but again, it's in service of advertisers. We're helping advertisers do the right things behind the scenes.
Yeah. I don't think the industry is really asking people or me as a consumer to manage my privacy in a way that seems unrealistically complex. So I do understand the choices that I have, but then sometimes I wonder, do I even do I want control? Like, is it that I want control, or do I just want to feel confident that somebody is responsible and in control for me? So I go back and forth. Like, do I actually want more control or just want to feel safe with who's ever responsible for controlling that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there is that expectation of,
Yeah.
the privacy is, it's a right that you have. So, even though you have some controls and there's some education around that, I think most of us have an expectation that companies should be doing the right thing.
I'd say this is a very complicated field. And so pushing that decision onto the consumer is, I think, putting it in the wrong place, right? Like
Hmm.
give people control for sure. But at the point where we're expecting consumers to be digital privacy experts, we've put the responsibility in the wrong place, right? And that's where I think it's better if we can get back to a place where we don't need to violate people's privacy to do a good job advertising. Like, you just don't, right? We can all do a better job there. We've been pushing very, very hard on that for a number of years. And it all more or less stemmed from this kind of identity-based targeting
Yeah.
approach based on trying to understand whether or not you can know somebody better than they know themselves. Right? That push is the kind of original sin that got us to where we are. And it didn't really work. It worked, but not that well. And it certainly doesn't work now. And I think to Jen's point, a lot of people, and to yours, Lolita, a lot of people have regularly deleted cookies, right?
Hmm.
Apple has made a selling point of being a privacy first company and like removed third party tracking from iPhones, right? So if you're a marketer and you're reliant on those cookies to target,
Yeah.
you can't reach anybody with an iPhone. Like you can't run a national campaign. You cannot reach everyone in the country. So if you're reliant on this technology, you're reaching a dwindling proportion of people, but that's not necessary. Like you can
Mm.
reach everybody with highly relevant advertising if you just do it by stopping doing creepy retargeting. Right? There are other technologies now, many of them, and in many ways, and more coming for sure. So I think there's a bit of a false tension here, which is advertising or privacy. And I'm saying, like, we have proven you can do advertising and privacy. And until that becomes a much kind of better principle to start from, then we're going to be stuck in this tension that's actually not a tension. Like, there's an old way of doing it that violates privacy you don't need to do. There are newer ways that allow you to do this without it, where you can run more efficient national campaigns that work better, and you don't violate privacy doing it. Let's do that. That seems like a better plan.
But do you think there's a risk in potentially overcorrecting?
No, we see better outcomes for our customers, our clients, with lower prices and higher reach. We see better performance on iPhone than on Android when we're retargeting. So when we don't use cookies to target, it works better, and you reach more people, and it's more effective.
I think when you were speaking about just us having control, I was thinking about trust and really the role that certain media companies play. Consumers do feel strongly about what companies in the advertising ecosystem should avoid, right? Like, stay out of that. So
Yep.
Our data shows that 64% feel it's very important to avoid using like sensitive personal details in targeting, and what they should provide in addition to that, right? 56% of our group said that they would actually like the ability to control who sees their information. And then that same number want the ability to delete their shared data. If both of you could sort of just talk to us about how you're working with consumers, or perhaps better, on behalf of consumers, to build trust and sort of minimize risk.
Well, the Trade Desk has something called UID2. Just a simple explanation of it. It's a secure opt-out ID-based login email that helps ads work without third-party cookies, essentially. Let's just call it that. And UID2 actually does have a transparency control portal where people can submit a global opt-out, and then your UID2 is no longer used for targeting ads. And it would be across the entire UID2 ecosystem. So not just like one website, but anything enabled with UID2 would opt you out completely. Now, while we're not a very consumer-facing brand, this is a sort of an important initiative to us, and we really appreciate the like companies like People who use UID2 along with other technologies in their own to kind of accomplish this. And it takes an ecosystem to kind of make it work well, and to do right by consumers in the back end. So thank you, JR, and People, for being one of those that helps.
No, Jen's exactly right. This is complicated, and it's no one company on its own that can do this right. And one bad actor can certainly cause problems across the ecosystem. So on our side, it's like work with trusted partners, Trade Desk being obviously one of our largest, and then make sure that for a consumer, if they make a decision that they don't want any data or they want it removed, that isn't just with us, it flows through all the other systems, and then being extremely transparent about the controls. I mean, that's easy to say, but complicated to do, because many of these companies you've never heard of are not great actors, right? Or are actively trying to do the wrong thing, right? And so no consumer ever should need to know what work goes into keeping the ecosystem clean. But our teams, both on our side and Jen's side, right, spend a lot of time thinking hard about this.
Yeah. It's almost, I think about, how do you continue to build trust at scale, almost without recreating some of the issues that sort of, got us here. JR, I think from a publisher perspective, do you think like publishers can almost become a buffer of sorts between consumers and advertisers? Like, you could be viewed as like that trusted go-between, potentially?
I mean, so People definitely have a relationship with the publisher.
Right.
Like, we run People Magazine, Southern Living, Travel and Leisure, Food and Wine, Health, right? Investopedia, Parents, right? These are the sites people have used for years, decades, or some of these have been around for a century or more, right? People have
Right.
handed down their subscriptions to their children to some of these, right? These are deeply, deeply trusted brands. And it's great to have that trust that's been built up over such a long amount of time. It's easy to know that trust can be broken in an instant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have to continually earn that trust. We have to do right by our readers. We have to help them and support them and meet them where they are all the time, whether it's in a magazine, on the web, at an event we're running, right? All of these things are places you can pick up data. What you do with it is tells you whether or not you should be trusted with it, right? And so we take that relationship extremely seriously, whether it is in deeply sensitive information in health, or even if it's just like what you're cooking for dinner this evening, right? If you're spending a lot of time looking at high fiber diets on all recipes, that's a pretty good indication you're likely dealing with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, right? We could do something nefarious with that information, or we can meet you where you are and educate you about metformin and other solutions that you can dig into and help with. One of those is helping the consumer. One of those is helping a customer that consumer might never hear of, right? We're here to help our consumers and make sure transparently we're helping them with what they're trying to do. As long as we stick to that, that trust keeps building over time. But that trust is gold.
It is. It's gold. Over the holidays, I used All Recipes, right? So I went to All Recipes for a sweet potato pie. I wanted to compare a couple of recipes, my grandmother's secret recipe and a few others out there, right? So I go on the platform, I look at some recipes, and then I'm targeted with the health benefits for sweet potatoes with dogs. Now, I do have a dog. I do have a dog, and I never thought about it. So literally to this day, my dog now gets sweet potatoes in his food because over the holidays, I went there for a pie recipe.
There you go.
So it's
There you go.
amazing. It's amazing. All right. So we've talked about a lot today, and there clearly is a wide open world in front of us. And we haven't really even talked about how AI is and will dramatically continue to change the game. You both are at the forefront of this change, and you work with countless advertisers and media partners. So let's get a little more prescriptive here. What do brands need to do to build partnership and trust with consumers? So for both of you, I'd like to know or think about what's the biggest mistakes that brands make, when they talk about privacy today. And then from that marketing perspective, how should, I guess, a CMO reframe privacy, right? So maybe reframing it from a compliance issue to, hey, this could be a brand building opportunity. I'd love to get some of your thoughts on that.
I think, well, we've talked a lot about like advertising, the trade-off. And I think maybe we should move a little bit away. I mean, I think it's a big part of the story, like the whole
Mhm.
idea of personalization, but I think we've kind of beat that with a dead horse.
Mhm.
It's still an important part of the conversation. But maybe one idea is brands kind of shifting to how to make it more obvious that you can help a consumer save time, how you can make it more about convenience for them, right? Like Lolita, you just mentioned AI, like generally as a topic, but a lot of people, what do they look to AI for, right?
Mhm.
Convenience and saving
Right.
time. I think that's a lot of what people need and want and are focused on these days. I think if we can shift the mindset on and the privacy conversation about how advertisers can help them with that,
Mhm.
and part of part of that is giving up a little bit of information and data in safe ways, but shifting to sort of that concept of saving time and giving convenience could be a good avenue to take.
Yeah, I think on the AI piece, there's so much that's going to happen in the next year or two. Obviously, so
Right.
much has happened in the last 3 years. Making predictions is a dangerous game.
Hmm.
But I think there's a promise here, which is you could move from the right answer for everybody, right? Kind of an average answer, which a lot of these systems, most of the answer engines currently do, to actually get to the best answer for you, right? Because there is the ability now to really understand where you are, what you're trying to do in the moment, and bring the best information for you, which is the same as the best ad for everyone, switching to the best ad for you, right? Now, if you approach that by saying, oh, we're just going to get really good at predicting who somebody is because we know them better than they know themselves, we're repeating this into the past. We're doing it all over again, and we're going to stereotype people and make predictions of who we think they are, not who they actually are. And that's going to be creepy, weird, and when
Yep.
you get it right, it's creepy, and when you get it wrong, it's bizarre, right? And the interesting thing about this AI kind of interaction with information, a lot of the privacy stuff that blew up in the last 20 years was because we had to guess who somebody is. Because if you're scrolling through Facebook, that person's actually not telling you much at the moment. Like, you have to infer a lot of it from like micro signals and what they may have done in the past. With the new AI interactions we're having, whether it's an answer engine or like something more subtle, I, as a consumer, am putting in a huge amount of information, right? I'm doing things, I'm writing things, I'm typing things, I'm asking things. So that kind of real-time signal is vast and rich and transparent to me as a consumer, right? If we go into this world thinking what we saw about somebody 2 weeks ago is any way going to trump the signal I'm telling you right now, right? Like, that would be very bad. But all the technology has been built on the last 20 years of not having any signal. And it's always easy to try and plug old technology into a new problem, as opposed to start from scratch and saying, well, if we're starting today and consumers are literally telling us in the moment in great detail like who they are right now and what they're trying to do, maybe we privilege that instead. Here's a good example. If I'm on a page reading about how to get a mortgage, obviously I can go sell you ads for best mortgages. That's easy, true, everyone's done it. If I get to the end of that article, I've effectively got two choices. I can say, here's the next thing you want to go read. It's like, should I get a broker? What's the mortgage process? Like, what's a 30-year, right? These are kind of the stand. Everybody has those questions. You picking one of those paths tells me nothing about who you are. If instead I say, what's the difference? What's a FHA loan? Or how does improving my credit score give me a better mortgage? Or what's the jumbo mortgage? Right? Three very different questions. No one person would ask all three of those because those are all questions for different people. If I choose to go down my next path of this discovery by saying, oh, I want to know how improving my credit score gets me a better mortgage, and then I start advertising to you credit building services,
Right.
that's not creepy. I know as a customer exactly why you're showing me that.
Hmm.
But if I don't do that and don't have that context and you start selling me credit building ads, that's going to look creepy as hell because you're guessing my credit score, right? So there's this new world where there's these very transparent, direct signals coming from consumers. And as an advertising industry, that is completely new. So if you as a CMO want to kind of lean in and work with this incredibly rich data stream, I would kind of start from scratch and say, like, okay, that world is past, this world is new. Let's not try and take old paradigms and apply them to this. Let's ask the question, like, if we were starting today, what's the relationship we want to build with consumers? Because we have an opportunity to build a relationship with consumers here in a way that they weren't able to before.
Jen, you have any final thoughts for that?
Not on that. I think we're on a good track here.
It's interesting because it's like, well, when I think about AI, will it make trust? It's like, will it be easier to earn,
right,
or easier to lose? So
Both.
just really, yeah,
yeah,
exactly, both. And I guess if we get this right, it could be a healthy relationship between, consumers and advertisers. But I think what we're really talking about is places where should be a healthy reset or constant upgrades and updates. Consumers want relevance, but they want it on their terms. And the brands, the platforms, and publishers who will listen to those consumers, I think, are the ones who are going to win. As we continue to move through 2026 and we look at the future of advertising, it won't just be defined by a lot of the data we collect, but really how thoughtful, responsible, and really transparently we use it. Jen, JR, I know we're close to time, but I just want to really thank you guys for sharing your perspectives with the audience as it relates to data privacy. And I think we all, even as consumers, will really start continuing to investigate ways that we can put guardrails around, what we share and how we share it. And both of you and your organizations will continue to be stewards for us and helping us. And I just want to thank you both for coming by today. And thanks to all of you out there who came by to listen. And I think this will do it for today's Human Tell podcast. We really hope that today's conversation gave you something to think about. I know it gave me something to think about, especially when you go on all recipes. You never know where it may take you. But if you did enjoy today's episode, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to keep learning about why people make the choices they make in a variety of areas, including data privacy. Just know that our advertising group will continue to explore the evolving relationship between consumers and ads with upcoming explorations into the growing role of AI and brand safety alongside difficult content like news. So we'll be back soon to share a little more human intelligence from our community. Until then, stay curious. Jen, JR, thank you so much for joining us today.